Hello everyone, this is Shrikar here, and today we'll be building a simple coded application from scratch. The application we are going to build is a simple menu application for a restaurant. So let's get started. Go ahead and create a new project. Let's name it as CoreData sample. Hit next. Say create the project. So that should be fine. The first thing what we need to do for a CoreData project is creating the models for any kind of entities. Since we are building a menu application, let's create a menu entity. Click on add entity, change the entity to menu, then click on add new items. Let's call it as menu text. It'll be of type string. Let's add another attribute called created at, which will be a date. That should be fine. Now what we need to do is, with this particular menu selected, let's go to editor, create ns managed object subclass, hit next, create. So we should be able to create a new menu class, which is a subclass of ns managed object context. So we have defined the model for the menu. Now let's go ahead and create some app layout. I'll go ahead and delete this. Drag in a table view controller, click on editor, embed in navigation controller. Similarly, I'll drag another view controller, which we will be using for adding new menu items. Let's arrange it. The selected editor, embed in navigation controller. Now select the first navigation controller and say is initial root view controller. Now drag in a bar button item, bar button, for which we will be using it for adding a new menu item. Click on the identifier and say add. Now with use control drag from this plus icon or button to the navigation controller and select present modally. Also, let's go to this view controller, add in necessary fields for creating a new menu. Drag this text field here. Now click on the pin icon here. Let's say 1644. That looks good to me. Add constraints. Let's add two buttons, bar button items for cancel and done. So when done is pressed, we will save the menu to the CoreData stack, and when we click on cancel, we basically don't save it. Select item, click on cancel. Now if we go ahead and run the application now, we should have a simple app. Let's see, let's get a couple of seconds. In the meanwhile, we can just go ahead and create a new CoreTouch class, which will be using for, which will be of type of subclass table, no, not table view controller, UI view controller. Let's say new menu view controller, hit next, create. Let's see what happened to the, so this is the basic application which we have. When we click on the plus, we can add whatever we want and then say cancel and done. The cancel and done are not working because we haven't implemented that functionality. So let's go to the main storyboard, select this view controller, go to the identity inspector, and let's give a custom class of new menu view controller. Open up the assistant editor. Let's create an IB outlet for this text field. Let's call it as menu text field. Now a control drag from the done button view controller, say it should be a action, not an outlet. Done pressed. Similarly do it for cancel as well. Cancel. It should be action. Hit connect. Let's create a private function which will help us in dismissing the model. Self.dismiss view controller. Flag true. Completion nil. That should be fine. So let's call done pressed. Dismiss from done pressed as well as from cancel. But in the done pressed we should even add the functionality for save menu item. That looks good. So if we go to app-delegate.swift, most of the data code required for dealing with CoreData is already generated for us. Let's move all the CoreData related code into a different file. Hit Command N, new Swift file, hit next. Let's call it as CoreData stack. Create. That should be fine. So let's go ahead and import CoreData here. Class CoreData stack. Let's move the code from there. Control X. CoreData stack. Command V. That should be fine. We also don't need this save context here. So the CoreData stack, let's create another function for saving the new menu item. Func insert new menu text is string. Let menu entry equal to n as entity, description insert new object for entity. The item is menu in managed object context, manage object context. It's an optional, you reference that. Now menu entry dot okay, menu entry dot menu text equal to menu text, menu entry dot created at equal to n state. So create today. Then at this point of time we have a valid menu entry which is already present in the managed object context, but it will not be saved unless and until we call save context. So let's go ahead and call save context here. So what we can do next is let's go to the new menu view controller. In the done pressed, we can see if there is some text in the text field and then use that text as the menu item name. Let's do if let mtext equal to menu text field dot text. Then let's call, okay, we need to create a CoreData stack variable equal to CoreData stack. Let's call CoreData stack dot insert menu mtext. Let's go ahead and run the application and see what will happen now. Say new menu item, done. Oops, it crashed. Oh, I know the reason why. So in Swift, most of the files which we have are namespaced, and if we go to CoreData model, in this one we see that this icon here, we have the name as menu, but the class is menu. Here we need to actually scope it by the module. So I'll say CoreData sample.menu and run the application again. Let's see what will happen now. New menu, done. Okay, at least the app didn't crash this time. It means that it saved the data to the CoreData stack, but there is no way for us to verify that. So we can go ahead and add some functionality for that. Let's create a new CoreData class. Next, it will be of UI table view controller. Let's call it as list table view controller. Hit next, say create. That's fine. Import CoreData. So if we now we will be using NS fetch results controller for fetching the data from CoreData. It's a class provided by iOS to efficiently manage the data when we are using the CoreData objects in conjunction with the UI table views. So it's a boilerplate code, so I already have that code implemented. I'll just copy it from the and I'll explain what exactly they do. So let's copy it. So what we do initially is, we have it as CoreData stack, right? Okay, so we should just change this name to CoreData stack. Okay, so we initially create a NS fetch results controller. We make sure that this NS fetch results controller is created only once. So we have another variable called underscore fetch results controller, which is null. So if that is null, if it is not null, we return that object. If it is null, we basically create a fetch request. So the fetch request is created like this: NS fetch request entity with name. Our entity name is menu. We also provide the batch size. It's the size in which we actually fetch data from CoreData. I gave it as 20. Then the sort descriptors. In our case, I wanted to like list all the names, all the menu items by the created at. That's just for example purpose. I'd say created at and ascending as false, so the latest one will come at the top. Then we have this is actually not really needed, it's redundant. Then we assign fetch request dot sort descriptors equal to an array of sort descriptors, so you could have multiple sort descriptors, and then I return the fetch request. So we basically use that fetch request which we created below as the fetch in the NS fetch results controller. We also have the managed object context, which is provided by the CoreData stack. The section name key path is null and cache name is also null. For the this example purpose, we are not implementing those functionality now. We also need to set the delegate. So we use NS fetch results controller delegate. One of the main property of this NS fetch results controller is that it can notify us when there is some change to the managed object context. So we want to set that delegate, but for some reason we see that if you click on that, it says list table view controller does not conform to that particular delegate. That's true. So we need to conform to that by saying NS fetched results controller delegate. So we have set up the delegate properly, and we also assign this fetch results controller to underscore fetch results controller. And we initially also perform the fetch that will initially load all the items from the CoreData. So we have that ready. In view did load, that looks okay. At this point of time, we should go ahead and implement the UI table view data source and delegates. So the number of sections, for the simplicity, I'll just give it as 1. And the number of rows in section will be self dot fetch results controller dot objects or fetched objects dot count. What is it saying? Insert it, fix it. Actually, that's not how we should be doing it. Let's go ahead and this fetch objects is of type array. So let's say let menus equal to fetched objects as menu. Then say menus dot count. That looks good. Now we need to even override the cell for row at index path. So let's go to the main storyboard. Let's go ahead and change this table view cell. Let's give it an identifier as cell. Now in the list table view controller, instead of reuse identifier, we'll provide it as cell. That's what we just gave it. Then let's go ahead and say self.textLabel.text equal to self.fetchResultsController.object at index path. It provides a fetch results controller provided also provides a helper function for getting the object at particular index path. Then that would be of type, actually. Let's do this. Control X. Let menu equal to this as menu dot menu text. That should be fine. Let's go ahead and run the application now. Let's see what will happen. The build succeeded. Why nothing is coming? You know what, actually, let's do this thing. Let's perform the perform fetch nil when it loads as well. You did load. Maybe it didn't get saved. Let's try this. Oh, I think I know the reason why. New menu controller. Let's say saving in the stack. Saving the menu. Let's test it again. Testing 1 2 3. Done. We saved the menu, but for some reason, oh yes, so we have the data stored in the CoreData stack, but it is not reflected here. We can actually listen for one more notification from the ns fetched results controller delegate, which would be like this one. I think it's controller did change content. Let's see if this is actually being called. Test done. For some reason that is not being called. Fetch results controller perform fetch. That looks okay. Let's look at new menu controller. That's the CoreData stack which we have. We store the data there and we have the cancel pressed. Let's go ahead and list the table view controller just to see if it actually works. What we can do is, let's print in the menus here. Oh yes, this code is not even being called. The reason is because we forgot to add the class here, custom class. We need to go here and just change it to list table view controller. That should be fine. Let's go ahead and run it now. We should see the data here. That looks good. So let's go ahead and change it again one more time. Done. So we actually have this called being called. That's the controller did change content. So what we can do is To fix it, let's go to the list table view controller. Let's remove this print line which we had not. Let's go and let's self dot table view dot reload data. That should be fine. Then we don't need this menus. How about this? Yes, it works. As you see that when the controller did change content is called, we are actually reloading the table instead of doing some kind of animation. We'll be taking up that animation in the next tutorial. So for this tutorial, I think that's all we have. So if you have any other questions, please let me know. Thank you guys. Thanks for watching the video.